Take a deep breath. Here we are. It's Sunday. On the way here, I was singing a song to Georgia, who was crying in the car about how great Sunday is. Now I'm getting ready to sing that song to you. It's great to have Sunday. It's great to have a spiritual practice. It's great to have a community that you come together with to celebrate and to activate principles. Amen? I got this little tag on my tee when I was preparing my talk, and it was so perfect because it's exactly what my talk was about, but in a tea message. So I could share this tea message and we could all go home. Where should we have brunch? It says this, author unknown. The difference between a flower and a weed is a judgment. The difference between a flower and a weed is a judgment. I've been listening to this audiobook that a friend shared with me, and you might find this funny, and Unity Centers might be one of the only centers that you'll hear a book about an atheist sharing their story of spirituality being shared in a sermon from the platform. This man's name is Sam Harris, and he wrote a book called Waking Up. He is an atheist, and he wrote this book. Its tagline is A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion, right? And when I was listening to this audiobook, this part struck me, and it was just like a symbol saying, truth. And really, like, if we just get this, again, where should we have brunch? Go home, we're done. Ready? Every experience you've ever had has been shaped by your mind. Every relationship is as good or bad as it is because of the minds involved. Every experience that you've ever had has been shaped by your mind. Every relationship is as good or bad as it is because of the minds involved. I just stopped and breathed there, going, let my whole life remember this. Let me remember this when I'm arguing with my life. Let me remember this when I'm arguing with my mind. Let me remember this because this has pure potential in it for transformation and awakening. He went on to say, if you are perpetually angry, depressed, confused, and unloving, or your attention is elsewhere, it won't matter how successful you become or who is in your life, you won't enjoy any of it. Because your own mind, my own mind, and the mind of those we interact with filter everything, do they not? They filter it, they take it in, they create beliefs, they create emotions, they create perception and perspective. The difference between a flower and a weed is a judgment. How often do our judgments support or deny our true inheritance? Our inheritance to have peaceful, loving-filled lives. That author, Sam Harris, also said that he was oblivious to how different his life would be if the quality of his mind were to change. He said that all we have are our minds, that are all we've ever had, and they are all that we can offer others. Do you believe that to be true? A lot of great work is done with the mind. Has anyone ever had their car break down? I know someone that's for sure saying yes. If you've ever had your car break down, what do? You get it fixed. What about when you feel like your life is breaking down? Or you're breaking down? Or the life of someone around you is breaking down? Or a reality that you knew and experienced that you thought would be there forever is breaking down? Or the world around you feel like is breaking down? How do you get it fixed? What do you do? What about when it's us? Maybe it's something that we've been holding up or holding together and it seems like it's unraveling or falling apart. Take a moment to think about this statement and how you feel about it. How do you feel about this statement? Anytime I've experienced a difficult or significant challenge in my life, it's always been a big step up. Anytime I've experienced a difficult or significant challenge in my life, it's always been a big step up. Someone shared that with me. Can you think about a time in your life that you thought you were having a breakdown or you thought there was a breakdown? And in fact, it was a breakthrough. Just breathe into that for a second. Breathe into any time where you had a breakdown. But then you realized that truly, on the other side of the breakdown was a breakthrough ready to be experienced. Find one of those experiences. And if you don't have one, if you can't find one, just say, I'm willing to be willing to experience one. I'm willing to be willing to see that that might be possible or might have actually been what happened. So when you've had that experience, bring that back to this moment and remember that experience. The experience where a breakdown was a breakthrough. Where truly you thought things were falling apart, but on a whole nother level, they were coming together. If anyone is not married to their first partner, but absolutely in love with, enthralled with, and just ecstatic and over the moon about the one they are married to now, you know what we're talking about. Because you probably had an experience where you thought everything was falling apart, where you thought there was a breakdown. And in fact, you are standing in the midst of the absolute opposite truth. But how often do our minds support this truth? And how do we practice it when we're not feeling it? How do we remind ourselves of it when the mind is simply saying, it's a breakdown? There's some keys to remember, and one of the keys is always the idea that this too shall pass. Repeating that to the mind, repeating that to the senses, nourishing the self with it. This too shall pass. It's inevitable. This too shall pass because life is changing. Because it's alive, it's changing. So everything that is existent in one moment shall pass. And when it passes, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity, if we're fully present, to transform. And to know that the same experience, the same breakdown will not happen again. Now, that's not to say that the same set of circumstances may not come together again for the same opportunity for a breakdown. But if we're truly present, if we truly practice, if we truly dive into the moment, into the breakdown, rather than resistant, if we truly get into it and call for all it has for us, it will not be remembered as a breakdown. It will be remembered as a transformation and a breakthrough because you are committed to making that happen. And when we presence what is up for us, when we move into it, we will see that a whole another set of circumstances can arise that we can respond to. And in fact, the same thing cannot happen even if the outer circumstances are the same, because we have become a different person. We have a different consciousness. We have a different mind, a different filter. So say you are heartbroken going through something that you see someone else going through. It's not to say they won't continue to go through the same things. It's not saying that you can, in and of yourself, change their reality. But what will change is your response to it. What will change is your own ability to have a breakdown. It's not saying that the same mental thoughts that trigger you into depression, trigger you into X, Y, and Z will not still occur. It's not saying that your boss won't make you crazy. It's not saying that things that we deem good or bad or good, whatever it is, that they won't keep happening. The same circumstances may in fact arise. but the experience will be different because something was generated that was not there before. There is something new that will be present. Because anytime you're having a breakdown, there is a breakthrough opportunity just beneath the surface. A breakthrough is an option for you because when we break down, it's simply that there's an undeveloped capacity that we have not yet experienced that lies within the true self. There is a capacity within that has not yet been actualized, not yet come into form. There is something in us, a strength, a power that has not yet had to be fully used. And we're having the experience of waking up to it. What if with the right tools and with mindfulness, we could transform these feelings? We could transform our experiences. We could think about things differently. In the book that Sam Harris wrote, he talks about athletes and the pain and endurance, and he talks about how the mindset is so critical because he goes into some of the pain that real athletes have when they're lifting weights or when they're doing things. It's like gut-wrenching pain, but they can actually have an experience where that pain is totally pleasurable. Why? Because they know that it's leading to something magnificent. They know that it's leading to their end game. They know it's leading to their goal. So something that otherwise you would think is awful. And he gives the example of if you had that kind of pain and you were terminally ill, it would be unbearable. You'd be thinking, oh, this is so wrong. But given the right mindset, that same pain is something that people put on themselves. It's something that people have excitement about enduring, and it's something that people, in fact, do you know any of these crazy people? My beautiful sister is one of these crazy people that gets like a great spiritual high from that kind of exercise. It's like she loves it. She wants that food for her brain. She wants to go on her run. If she doesn't go on her run, she feels off. Can we know this potential and activate it within ourselves, even when the mind is experiencing or seeing something that doesn't feel good? It is ours to unleash our inner potential, but it takes tools and it takes keys. So here are the keys that I have for us. The first key is this: to remember that this too shall pass, but also to remember that when it does, there may be something I have that I don't have now. So asking ourselves the question in the midst of it, what shall I have when this passes? What might I have when this passes? Can we remember to ask ourselves that in the midst of the negative experience? What might I have when this passes? What might I be developing? If this goes unchecked, the answer could be resentment. The answer could be regret. But when we apply principle, when we step into mindfulness and consciousness work, we become changed. What we will have at the end of this is a rewiring. We will be built to withstand something that we were not otherwise able to be present to. We will build a capacity to see something, an expanded capacity to experience something, to know a truth. The second key is to ask ourselves that when this passes, who will I be? Who will I be? To really get into what might I be building in my character? What could be building in me? What is wanting to grow? Can we ask ourselves the question in every moment? What in me is wanting to grow? Is it possible that when I'm standing in a breakdown, I'm standing on the precipice of a breakthrough? And not just for me as a human, not just these little human things that we go through from day to day, but actually my soul, actually my whole being on this planet, what I came here for. Is there something building and growing in me? Take a moment to just pause, to just feel something in your life or something you're experiencing. It could be that you're experiencing through watching someone else or watching something in the world, or it could be in your own personal experience. But it feels like a breakdown, or it feels like, if you can't identify it, it might be something that you have a chronic meltdown about. Does anyone have chronic meltdowns? Or that you've identified? Now you're hearing the word chronic meltdown and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a chronic meltdown. Just bring that to mind and just breathe into that. Just allow yourself to be with it, not to resist it, not to judge it, but just to be with whatever feels like a breakdown. And really, truly get into the possibility that this could be a breakthrough in motion. Allow yourself a moment to set an intention of being able to experience this as truth, as an option, as a possibility. And I invite you to bring your awareness back to this moment. The possibility that we can stay in that question increases the probability that we will demonstrate it as truth. Because when we start thinking of what could be growing in me, of what it is that may not have been present that allowed this to shake me so much, and what might be building, when we allow ourselves to ask those questions, we start generating answers. And when we start generating answers, we practice the principle of unity that is the law of mind action, that our thoughts are things, that our thoughts are creative, and they are our determining factors in how we can experience life. And it engages that unity principle of action, that to know these truths is not enough, but we must act on them. And when we start thinking these thoughts and asking these questions, we create a different reality. We create a reality that has growth, that has answers. And sometimes they don't just come to us. There's a Latin proverb that says, if there is no wind, row. Sometimes we have to row to get there. Sometimes it takes a lot of rowing, but we will get there. Because this is a shift in our mentality. It's a shift from the mindset that life is here for our suffering, and instead it's the shift into the idea that life is here for our growth. It's a letting go of the old ideas that there is somehow a God outside of us that does stuff, that causes stuff, that is horrific on our experience of being. And instead it invites us to see the possibility that there is a loving universe that is always supporting us, always transforming every experience for our good, for our growth, whatever it is. And when we do that practice, we step into alignment with principles. We step out of illusions. And we can ask ourselves, even about the breakdown, when we have them, what is really breaking down? What is really breaking down? When we're in the midst of change, when we're in the midst of that feeling, what is really breaking down? Have you asked yourself that question? I think we'd be surprised to find some of the answers. The answers are usually what's breaking down is the idea that anything outside of me that can have power over me. Breaking down the idea anything outside of me can have power or dominion over me. Bob Marley wrote about it. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. What's really breaking down is something in the mind that is programmed not to be okay with what is. What's really breaking down is peace or joy based on circumstances or conditions. It's pretty wobbly anyway, especially when there are those that are out of our control. What's really breaking down is the illusion of who we thought we are or who we thought we were, which is usually more our labels and roles than our true conscious birthright and destiny. What's really breaking down is an illusion, a system not based on principle. But what is building up is the Christed potential. What is building up is the self beyond ego. What is building up is that which has no opposite. Wendy Craig Purcell, a Unity minister in California, said this: "Just for today, I practice redefining what I believe is possible for my life. Rather than being pulled down by what went wrong or didn't work out, I find a way to build on it. I will move ahead stronger, not in spite of those disappointments or detours, but because of them." What makes the difference in a breakdown or a breakthrough? Your commitment to making the breakthrough happen. Namaste.